Hello, and welcome to Voices from the Field, a Mayford podcast where we talk with educators in the field to hear about their perspectives and experiences. My name is Jake Burson, Advocacy Chair for Mayford, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Tom Gelardi. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Just a little bit about Tom. Tom Gelardi is a distinguished elementary physical education teacher in New York City with more than 15 years of experience inspiring young students to embrace active, healthy lifestyles. He also teaches grades pre-K to 5, and he is known for his dynamic, student-centered approach that blends creativity, enthusiasm, and purposeful movement. His excellence in the field has earned him national recognition, including being named the 2025 Shape America National Elementary PE Teacher of the Year, following top honors at both the state and regional levels. His work has also drawn attention from public leaders and major media outlets, such as The Today Show. Tom Gilardi's impact extends beyond the gymnasium. During the pandemic, he developed engaging online education content, which I'm sure you've seen before, that has reached a broad audience, helping students remain active during a challenging time. Committed to advancing his profession, he serves as an open national trainer and presents at conferences across the United States and around the globe, while also sharing innovative teaching practices with educators through digital platforms. Through his passion, leadership, and innovation, Tom is a leading voice in elementary physical education, dedicated to fostering lifelong wellness in children. Before we get started, Tom, what's making you smile these days?
Well, first off, that person sounds pretty amazing. But
Well,
what
he
what
is.
I have a lot going on
Hmm.
that's really positive in my life right now. I have three beautiful children. I have a loving family. We're moving to a new house. Work as far as teaching can't be any better. I have such a supportive administration. I have a coworker that's as dedicated and as passionate as I am. We're affiliated with Queens College, so we have a ton of student observers and student teachers that get to visit and help us along the way. The children are so much fun to teach and be around. So couldn't be happier.
That's really cool. That's such a great story, and thank you for sharing that. So, Tom, tell us more about how you started your education journey. What's the little background?
Yeah, I was pretty much a kid that played soccer and just did well in school and didn't really focus past that. It wasn't really until I got to college and I had to make a decision on what I wanted to do. And I initially picked exercise science because it would give me like a wide range of things to get into.
Hmm.
Once I had graduated, my college advisor suggested maybe go into coaching. And that was really my first experience working with children. And I worked in this little gymboree place where you teach gymnastics and all kinds of sports with young children from as ages as 4 all the way up to 10 years old. And when I started working there, I had recognized that I had this unique way around with children. I had the sensitivity, I had the patience to be around them. I had this gift of meeting them where they were and brought out the best in them. I guess because like I'm kind of a big kid of my own. Once I realized I had this unique way with kids, I thought to myself, what can I do to make more money doing this? And that's where my advisor had suggested maybe go into physical education.
Hmm.
And once I realized that was kind of my path and my goal, there was really nothing stopping me at that point.
As they say, the rest is history, right?
Yeah, the
So,
rest is history,
so
right?
this gymboree, they have a place up this way on the East Coast called the Little Gym. I imagine it's similar where they teach gymnastics and it's preschool. They have the mom and me classes and they have all the
Yeah.
way up to elementary. Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. I've
It
seen it.
actually was called the Little Gym.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Little Gym of Port Washington, Long Island. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. So
It
yeah,
was
they
too
franchise,
funny.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, that's cool. So, Tom, you're also an open national trainer. How did you get involved in that aspect, and what exactly do you do as an open national trainer?
Yeah, I went to my state organization when they had the state convention. I went to a couple sessions and I went to an open session and I just loved the energy and I met a few of the open trainers and they were such nice people that I'm like, how do I become a part of that? And so I reached out, but at the time, I didn't really present very much and I wasn't really known. So I was on the waiting list to become a trainer.
Hmm.
And then when the pandemic happened back in 2020, I started making videos to help my students. And as I shared it on YouTube, teachers from around the country started using them. And I went and I circled back with open and I said, listen, if you ever need me for anything, let me know. And then I was graciously back in 2022, they had interviewed me. And then that's when I became a national trainer. And one of my favorite things about Open is that just being around the other national trainers,
Hmm.
these are some of the most dedicated and passionate teachers from around the country that only care about pushing this profession forward. And so it's just a delight spending time with all of them. And then I'm fortunate enough to present in different areas of the country, presenting open content and meeting so many dedicated teachers. And it's helping me grow as a person. So it's really been a wonderful experience and something that I take pride in being a part of.
That's really cool. And just the fact that you're with like-minded individuals like yourself, that really brings everybody up together, right? That's key. Being around people that have the same type of passion that you do, it only makes everyone and everybody around you better. So that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
Tom, when you give these PDs or presentations, what are some common questions that participants might ask you? It could be an open training or just be in general. Like what are some common things that teachers ask?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of times when I'm presenting, I present with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. So a lot of questions I get is like, how do you maintain that enthusiasm?
I got
Or,
you.
how do you handle large class sizes?
Mm,
Or typically, if you're around new teachers, it's how do you handle time management, classroom management? How do you
hmm.
get the best out of your students? Those are the typical questions I'll get if they stop
Gotcha.
me in the middle of my sessions. Yeah,
Okay, so it really depends on who's asking the question, right? If it's a veteran teacher, it's going to be different than a beginning teacher. So,
definitely.
what advice would you give for, let's say, let's take behavior management, something that could happen or does happen with teachers of all ages and experience levels? What's one tool or tip or strategy that you like to use?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, when it comes to behavior management, is really just make sure you know your content. Like,
Hmm.
review what you're teaching before you teach it.
Hmm.
Make sure you're mentally and physically prepared so that you know where you're going with this lesson. And now you can focus fully on the students. And when you're prepared, there's a really good chance the kids are going to be prepared.
Hmm.
Another thing I do that works well is we set expectations in the very beginning of the year.
Hmm.
I'll sit down with my students and I'll say, listen, we got to keep this gym space safe if we're going to expect to learn anything. Help me figure out ways to keep this space safe. What if I tell you to sit down on the floor and now you're spinning around unsafely? Like, what would be the consequence for that? And then have the kids tell you.
Hmm.
They might say, "Oh, well, sit me out for the rest of the class." And I might be like, "Ooh, that's a little strict. I feel like for one offense, how about we give you a verbal warning? Let's make that a verbal warning if a mistake's made." And they'll agree to it. I'm like, okay. And if you make that mistake again, maybe we'll take a 1 minute break to kind of refocus. And then the third time, maybe that's the time we need to take a longer break and maybe take notes on the sideline of what we're learning because you may not be physically involved in the lesson, but you'll still be involved in that you're watching.
Hmm.
And then once all the kids agree, it's binding. And then throughout the year, when a kid makes a mistake, I'll say, listen, I told you to work with the soccer ball safely, and you're clearly not. This is going to be your verbal warning. And if you do this again, you're going to have to take that 1 minute break.
Hmm.
And they agree to it because this is something we agreed upon in the beginning of the year.
Right.
Another thing is this is the last thing with classroom management that I would say that really has helped me is try to find that student who is the most unfocused or the ones that tend to just want to do the exact opposite of what you're teaching.
Hmm.
And recognize that you can't fix that issue within the time you have them in class. So are you willing to put in the work after the bell rings to spend some time with that child and connect with them, either at
Hmm.
recess, before, after school? Are you willing to commit that time to get to know that child and build some kind of relationship with them and then bring it back into the class?
Mm.
We had a student one time that just really wanted nothing to do with physical education. And when I went outside, I'd found out that he likes Taekwondo. And I said, well, what belt are you working towards? He said, the red belt. I said, that's amazing. When are you up for it? He said, at the end of the month. I'm like, I'd love to check it out. And I went and I got to see him earn that belt. And then When I had class with him later that week, I had brought it up. I'm like, dude, I had never realized how motivated you were in Taekwondo. That was unbelievable. And once he saw that I was interested in what he was all about, he slowly started becoming interested in what I was all about. And that
Mm,
works well with upper elementary kids. When you're working with younger ones, like primary grades, let's say a first grader,
mm,
and they don't want to be part of your class, you could figure out what they're into. Like I had one student that was obsessed with SpongeBob SquarePants, and I said, okay. The very next class, I put SpongeBob SquarePants theme song as part of our warm up. Or if we're working with a soccer ball, I put SpongeBob SquarePants stickers on his or her particular ball. And it's just enough to spark something in them to be included in part of my lesson. And then we just
mm,
go from there. Once they do part of the lesson, then next thing you know, they're doing a little bit more, a little bit more. It does take a little time and effort, but I'm telling you, if you put the work in early,
mm.
by the end of the year, your classroom management, that it wouldn't be an issue.
What a great story. And I think the key here is building those relationships, like you said, beyond the bell, when the bell is over, when the class is over, recess, lunchtime. We all have duties after school or before school. So trying to build those relationships and connections. And I love that story about the Taekwondo. So I'm sure he was psyched to see you there, right? At his
Yes.
at his gym, and then to get that, earn that belt and earn that. That's a lot of work. Martial
It's
arts
a lot
isn't
of work,
easy.
and it was funny because I thought it was gonna be a half-hour thing. Next thing you know, I was there for 3 hours.
Right.
But you don't have to go to every single event.
Hmm.
Just go one time, and you'll be amazed on the impact that it will make on that child. And if you
That,
haven't tried it, give it a try. Trust me.
that's awesome. Give it a try,
Yeah,
right?
I
That,
figured at some point I'd say it. I didn't think I'd do it
yeah.
this early, but
Well,
yeah.
that's all right. There'll be other opportunities. So you kind of went into our next question a little bit, which is how do you develop or encourage leadership in your students? And you explained how you co-create the rules with your students, and I think that also is a way to develop leadership. But what other things might you do or have you done in the past that have given students maybe the opportunity to shine in a different way, in like a leadership role, whether it's a coach or
That's an excellent question. I think the biggest thing I try to do while I'm teaching, at least during the school year, is try to
mm,
expose my students to as many varieties of different activities as possible
mm-hmm,
and giving them time to explore and practice. And
mm-hmm,
while that's happening, I'm actively observing them. Every kid is so unique. And if you're starting a volleyball unit and working on a bump and set pass, you'd
mm-hmm,
be amazed on kids, even at the elementary level. They just have this unique, it's almost like a talent where they just pick up things quicker than others.
mm,
And so when you have this unique ability, I always tell my students, well, what are you going to do with this? Are you going to show off to the other kids how amazing you are? Are you going to just brag and say, I'm better than you and look at me looking out not at you? Or are you going to use that talent, use that ability as a way to help others grow and learn? Like
mm,
that's what leaders do. You can only get so far on your own. And you
right,
come across as a very good volleyball player. But if you want to get great, the next step is to help your neighbor, help your fellow classmate. And so
right.
we encourage students that have that uniqueness in them, either they play volleyball on their own or they just have this kind of unique gift to, at times during the lesson, put their volleyball down and assist the people next to them.
Mm,
Or we group them up with purpose. We group them up with a student that just really has never played before and use that as an opportunity to teach them how to be a leader and help others. And when you give kids a variety of different activities to do, each and every lesson, it tends to be a different leader at that particular time. Yeah.
right. So it kind of happens organically with the fact that you're promoting the variety of different units and topics and putting them also in opportunities to practice. Like you said, they're a beginner with somebody who's more advanced, and that gives them a chance to work on his or her leadership skills. So that's great. So, Tom, we both know as PE teachers that we see all types of students in the classes. What is something that you do to make sure that it's inclusive for everyone, either the lesson or the unit or just the environment?
Right now we're in our volleyball unit, and the,
Hmm.
the key is to keep it simple and keep it basic in the beginning.
Hmm.
We're working on the forearm bump pass, and I start off with giving every child a balloon, which anyone with experience will say, well, this is too novice for me. I'm more advanced in this. And I get that. but everyone can practice at the most simplest level.
Mm,
Showcase that you're able to do more. I'll see it through my observation, and I'll either give you a beach ball or a trainer ball or a volleyball based on what I'm seeing, or I'll tell you to put the balloon down and help the others to have them catch up to your ability. But I always start with the softest and easiest piece of equipment that works for all children. And then based on my observation, we build off of that and we change up the equipment, the space, based on how well they're doing. And that's why it's so important that you know where your lesson's going and it gives you
mm.
enough time to really spend time observing and helping them along the way.
In
Uh,
addition to that, Tom, just to follow up, I think
yeah,
giving them everybody a balloon, they all start with a success. Now maybe they're on a travel team or whatnot, whatever the unit is, but at least everybody's successful in that task. Whereas if you start at to an advanced level, as you know, it's going to lead to frustration. Then they're not going to like the activity. It just spirals. So that's a great strategy and a great tip for teachers to utilize. And
yeah.
then you also mentioned observing them. So you're observing their skills, you're observing their social skills, you're observing their technique and their biomechanics. So it's not just random observation, right? You're really pinpointing on.
Yeah, and a lot of my student teachers always ask me, like, how do I observe them safely? And I said,
Hmm.
well, if the kids are in motion, like if they're moving all around, then you have to be on the outside of the playing area observing. You
Hmm.
can't be in the middle because, particularly with elementary students, your back would be to certain kids. So you
Hmm.
have to be in a spot where you're on the outside. I always tell them it's always like you're the lifeguard and everyone inside are swimming. You know, would the lifeguard be in the pool with them or would they be on the outside really scanning, right? And so that's what we do when kids are in motion, when they're moving around.
Hmm.
But a lot of the times, particularly when you're working on skills, a lot of them are in personal space and working in their own space.
Right.
And so once we agree upon we're going to work on our space, there's some trust giving me the opportunity to have my back to certain children, right? Obviously, kindergarten's a little different. You got to be
Right.
careful, always watch them. But if I'm with upper elementary students, I'm able to work with certain groups of kids while my back is turned to others because they're working independently. So if I show them how to do the forearm bump, I will then give them 3 to 4 minutes of practice. And with purpose, I'll go up to a set of children on one side of the gym and I'll take the ball away and I'll say, do you remember the skills and the cues we went over? Okay, great.
Hmm.
And each of them, I'll practice at least one bump with them to see where they're at. And then I'll go to the next group of students. I'll do the same. And then I'll go to the next group. By the time I'm done, it's been about 2 to 3 minutes, and I'll sit the entire class down and I'll review what I've observed because there's always common trends like, oh, maybe a kid's
Mm.
bending his arm too much. Maybe they're not, maybe they're flat-footed, they're not on their toes. So then I'll sit them down, I'll go over what I've seen and what we need to work on, and I'll tell them let's practice for a couple more minutes, and then I'll go up to another set of children. What's great about that is that I get to have one-on-one moments with each child every lesson, regardless if it's 20 students or we have up to sometimes 70 kids. I'll still have that one-on-one time, and I'm able to really gauge how they're doing and where they're at in the lesson so that in the following lesson, I can group them up accordingly. But the biggest thing is kids have to do their best.
Mm.
Sometimes you have a student that can do it so easy that they start fooling around or they just don't, they're not as focused because it's too easy for them.
Hmm.
And I always try to tell them that if you do that as an observer, it confuses me. And I start to think that maybe you're truly a beginner. So you have to be disciplined enough throughout the 2 to 3 minutes or 4 minutes, however long you're practicing, to take it unbelievably seriously so that when we get to a culminating activity at the end of the unit, I can appropriately put you in the right groupings to play so that we don't have all the experienced players together and all the beginners together. We want to have a nice mix. But it's hard to
Mm.
mix kids up if we're not taking this part of the lesson seriously.
I like that approach because it puts the responsibility back on the student, right? They have to take responsibility for their own actions, their own behavior. And it's 3 or 4 minutes is not a long time to stay focused on a task, right? I mean, if they can do that in math and science and all the others, they can definitely do it in our subject.
Absolutely.
And I like that they get put in groups based on what you observe, right? So it's a deeper methodology going on here. It's not just random grouping. Oh, let's play a game today and put Johnny, Susie, and Micah, whoever together, but it's all planned out specifically for what you're trying to achieve. That's great. There's a lot to that, what you said.
Yeah.
So Tom, let's talk about a success story. It can either be with a student or a teacher. What's a story that stood out with you? I know you mentioned the student with the Taekwondo, visiting his school, but is there another success story um, that has kind of stayed with you in your career? And if not, it could be even a teacher too, whatever kind of comes to you.
I don't think I have a particular success story that's really jumping out at me,
Hmm.
but I have a tremendous amount of patience. What I find is I'll have kindergartners and first graders. Some of them will come in and they come in so unfocused.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're inadvertently rude. Just they make the lesson difficult. And I just am so consistent with them, and I find ways to bring out the best of them, even though each and every lesson, it's always a challenge. But I just stick with it. I'm
Hmm.
consistent. I focus on what I can control, and I help this child the best I can. And then I just wait it out. And sure enough, by the time they get to fourth, fifth grade, something clicks in them and they become a different child. And so sometimes it's even even throughout the years with me, they haven't got together. But 10 years down the road, when they're in high school, I run into them
Hmm.
and they're like the nicest and greatest kid, and they're so focused. And so, one thing I would say for all teachers out there is just meet kids where they are. Teaching can be frustrating at times, but just take a deep breath and understand that you're working with children and everything takes time. And if you're consistent and you're always positive and you always teach good character in front of them, before you know it, things will turn around and you just got to stick with it. So I
I
don't
love
know if
that.
that helps answer your
No, it
question.
does. So you're talking about not one event in particular, but just a kind of style and approach about meeting students where they're at, being consistent, and just doing the best you can with them to try to bring out the best in them, as you said. So, no, that's great. That
Yeah,
definitely answered the
I have an
question.
amazing coworker, and he didn't believe it, and he's now been with me 4 years, and he's like, I can't believe it. These children that have just you take a deep breath when they come into the gym when they were younger. Now it's like they're just a pleasure to be around. And it's because of our consistency and our positivity and on our focus on character.
That's
It's
awesome.
really hit home with them. Yeah.
I'm sure that they're lucky to have you and your coworkers, so that's awesome. So, Tom, let's move on to social media. So you're on many different platforms, right? Instagram, TikTok. Are you on anything else?
I have a YouTube,
YouTube,
I have
YouTube,
a
everything.
YouTube
So,
channel for sure.
so when you post your videos, I'm just curious, what's kind of your thinking behind the post? Is it to share a strategy? Is it to share a tip? Is it to answer a question? Take us through like kind of your mindset about how you post
I
it.
mean, there were definitely phases
Mm-hmm.
of how I brought out content. I would say about 2017, 2018 was when I made my first video.
Mm-hmm.
And my inspiration was being stuck in the classroom because it was a rainy day and I lost my gymnasium because of a book sale. And now I'm in this classroom and every classroom has a smart board. So I'm thinking, let me do a warm up. Let me go on YouTube. And I looked up a follow along dance video and something popped up and I hit play and the kids were into it. I'm like, this is cool. And I just thought to myself, like, I can make one of those. I do fitness workouts with the kids in the gymnasium. Why can't I do it on the screen? And I encourage all listeners, if you feel that same, like, I think I can do this, do it. Do it. So I remember making my first dance video in the gymnasium. I just took a tripod. I had a speaker that I blast the music onto my iPad because I didn't really know anything about tech and I figured this is the way to go. So I just blast the music, full blast onto my iPad, and I would videotape myself doing the steps. I didn't even know how to edit. So you just see me running to the iPad, pressing the button, running back. And I put it on YouTube and I made my first video on my YouTube channel. And the very next time I was stuck in the classroom, I played myself. And it was just wonderful to see the students respond. Like they were just so shocked that I was on the screen. Like that's our gymnasium. That's can't believe it. Even the teachers were surprised to see me. And it just motivated me to just continue to make dance videos. So I started making a dance video once a month. And then in 2020, COVID-19 happened, and now
Mhm.
the entire school was shut down. And because I started making these dance videos, I had about a library of about 25 dances. So I went
Nice.
on Facebook and I said, listen, if you're struggling to find ways to get kids to move, here's my YouTube channel. Here's some of the things I've done. And the feedback I got from teachers from all around the country, it was just incredible. They were just playing my dance videos for their students. And it wasn't what I initially intended. I was under the delusion that phys ed teachers would look at my dance move and then they would just copy those steps for their own children. I never thought that they would just click me and I would be kind of, in a way, teaching their students as well. So it was just an amazing experience. And then once we found out we had to go to remote learning, and this was going to be a long-term thing,
Hmm.
I was just very blessed to have a basement where we were refurnishing. So we had no couches, we had space in the basement. And I went on, at the time, I think it was Twitter, but X, and I saw teachers from around the country doing at-home videos with paper, with socks. And I had this thing of like, I think I can do this too. And so I made my first video in my basement using a piece of paper, crumbling it, and just kind of volleying it in the air with my hands. How many times can you do that? And when I posted it on my YouTube channel, I went to sleep. I woke up the next day. I think I had like 18,000 views.
Wow.
I remember calling my dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm a little nervous. Like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they're expecting. And my dad's like, just be yourself and just do do what you feel is right. This is your channel. If people don't think this is good content, they'll go to a different venue, a different channel. But if
Mm.
they think what you're doing is helpful, then do it. So then I thought to myself, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to make a huge impact in this profession in such a positive way. So I started making these videos. I remember I'd spend one day writing out at-home activities. The next day I would film it, which was like the most fun part. And then I had to deal with the boring part of editing it. So it was like a 3-day process, but I would try to push out a video once or twice a week. And I think what separated me from a lot of other teachers is that when the summer came, I had this feeling that COVID wasn't going anywhere. So I dedicated my summer to continue to make videos throughout the entire summer so that when September came, I had like a library of 15, 20 videos to roll out
Mm-hmm.
to help not only my students and other teachers. And that was when I started making YouTube. And then once the pandemic started to slow down and everything went back to normal and everybody went back to school, I had recognized that there were a lot of young people, teachers, that their only experience being mentored was virtual through Zoom because when
Mm.
they were student teaching, they weren't allowed to be in the gym. They had
Mm.
to learn through Zoom. And so they went into the gymnasium having their first job after the pandemic with little to no practical experience. So I figured, why not use TikTok as a platform to share basic tricks. And I think I remember one of my first tips was like, hey, if you're going to use a whistle in your gymnasium, make sure it's plastic and if it's around your neck, because if it's metal and you're doing a jumping jack to demonstrate, there's a chance that metal whistle might hit you in the face and possibly chip your tooth. Use plastic, give it a try. And I remember I had like 2 likes, and I think it was my wife and I. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. My reason for doing this is to help young people. I'm just going to stick with it. And consistency was the key. But
Mm.
here's the biggest kicker. I was doing this to help other people, not realizing that this was actually helping me. I have gotten so comfortable in front of the camera that it helped me with my own instruction with children. Like I'm able to get to the point without stuttering, without
Mm.
saying, so without any of those filler words, because I had worked on it so many times when I was videotaping myself. I also recognize the type of energy that I need to get my point across on camera. And I provide that same energy when I'm around my children. And it's just been so helpful. So it is not only am I doing my best to help young people, but I'm finding it's helping my own learning as well.
And you're, yeah, that's what a great story. You're going above and beyond. You're doing these videos. You knew that COVID wasn't going anywhere, so you spent the time and the discipline to create all these resources. And it ends up not only helping people who didn't have a chance to go into the gymnasium, like these new teachers, but also veteran teachers alike, and also your own teaching. So it's kind of like full circle moment where it's helping everybody, and just that's awesome. So really
Yeah,
cool.
I really appreciate it. Listen, I didn't have like everything go well in my career from the get-go. I had some bumps along the way, but my dedication to grow and learn and my personal development has always been on the forefront. And doing that for 15 years before COVID had happened, I really truly believe prepared me for this situation.
Mhm.
And I'm just very blessed that I was ready, that I had the experience, that I had the dedication for something like this to have happened, and to use it as an opportunity to help so many people in physical education and beyond. And my ultimate goal is to get young people that are uncertain about what they want to do in their career to hopefully see me on camera and say, wow, this guy has a lot of energy. He looks like what he's doing is a lot of fun. Let me see what this physical education is all about. Because I think what we need to do as a profession is really focus on getting the right people entering this profession.
Mm,
I think we need a lot of young people that have enthusiasm, that are good with kids, and that are dedicated to being the best that they can. And if we could have every physical education teacher like that, I don't think we'd have to worry about advocacy. I think that we wouldn't have to worry about funding. I think that's the biggest goal. And I think when I get an email from a young person out of high school saying, Coach Gelardi, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I saw your energy and I decided to go into physical education. Now I'm in my second year teaching and I couldn't be happier. It just makes me realize that making all of this really was the right way to go. I couldn't be happier.
yeah, having a huge impact on people. That's awesome. And you just answered my next two questions, which was what advice would you give to someone new entering the field? And also, what do you hope to see in the future? What goals do you have? You kind of just talked about it, with your
Yeah, I
that
like the
response.
ramble. Sorry
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
no, no, that's fine.
I
No,
know.
no, that's great.
No, I know.
No, it's painting a picture and sharing your story, and it's really impactful, obviously, to many, many people. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah,
you have in a
I
thousand.
have another tip for young people
Yeah.
because I'm very blessed to work with a lot of young people, and it's you got to get out of your comfort zone.
Mm,
I've worked with so many young teachers that tend to do things their way, and they're not as open to try new things because they're worried to fail. And it's like, well, you're going to fail. And my biggest thing is I'm always afraid to be a hypocrite. Like, how can I tell a student to try things even if they're going to fail if I'm not even willing to try things and fail?
mm,
We have to lead by example, and you got to do things that are completely uncomfortable. It wasn't comfortable for me to start videotaping myself in the very beginning. I didn't like how my shiny head. I didn't like how I have a lisp. I didn't like how I sounded on camera. But it's not about that. It's about getting better for your students, and there's always room to grow. And the quickest and fastest way to grow is by doing something that's videotaping one of your lessons and
mm.
having the willingness to do that, no matter how uncomfortable it is. I'll do like a dance program and I'll run into teachers that are like, listen, dancing isn't my thing. I'm like, do I look like a dancer? I'm not a dancer, but it's you have to get out of your comfort zone to grow and learn. And I think it's important to do that. And
Absolutely. And
yeah,
you're also talking about reflection too. When you're analyzing your video, you're reflecting on what worked well, what didn't work well, and what can I do differently next time. Those are all things that are part of getting out of the comfort zone and being improving ourselves, right? Improving our teaching capabilities and our craft.
yeah.
So,
And to add on to that, it's like, sometimes you watch yourself and you think you're amazing. And that's why you need to have like a mentor or a network of friends. And that's
mm,
why I love Open. I also have on Twitter X a Friday night family where we have these amazing teachers from around the country that every Friday night we go on Zoom and we just kind of hang out. It started during COVID. And I have these just amazing people that if I'm like, listen, I think I did this great, but if I send them the video, they're like, Tom, I think I would have done this differently. I think I would have done that differently. And it's so helpful
mm.
to get that feedback. But are you willing to share that content with others it's kind of hard because some people are afraid to get judged. Listen, we're going to
Right.
get judged. If we're not getting judged by other professionals, we're going to get judged by our administrators. But most importantly, we're going to get judged by the kids. So if you're
Mm.
not putting in the work, these kids are going to be like, oh, this teacher doesn't know what he's doing,
Right. No,
So
you
put in
bring
the
up a
work.
good point. Yeah, we're being watched. We're kind of like in that fishbowl, so to speak, right? And so
Yeah.
we got to do the best job we can for not only our students, but also to raise the profession further, which you're doing and have done. So I mean, kudos to you. As we come to a close, Tom, any final words of wisdom you can give to both our veteran teachers and our new teachers?
The best advice I can say is meet kids where they are
Hmm.
and be mentally and physically prepared and just do your best. And I think character development sometimes takes precedence over skill development.
Hmm.
You know, focus on the SEL part of it and build kids' characters. Like teach them the power of having confidence, to persevere, to have integrity. You know, integrity is something that can be taught. Like I didn't have a ton of integrity when I was a kid. I would act one way in front of the teacher, and then I'd act a complete clown when the teacher would turn his back. I lacked that integrity, and I see it in a lot of my children that I teach, and I try to
Mm.
address it and say, listen, regardless if I'm standing over you or if I'm far away, you have to still commit to growing and learning. It's a commitment. And what makes physical education so unique is that we have the time to do that. Like we have those teachable moments that tend to happen in class where we really could address being kind to others, winning with grace, losing
Mm.
with grace, and having those teachable moments to develop
Mm.
character. If we can focus on that, I think we'd be making a world of difference in a positive way. And I think that's the way to go in physical education.
Great tips, great advice. We definitely have the right venue for it with all the with our topics and whatnot. So great advice. And then finally, Tom, how can our listeners connect with you? I mean, obviously the YouTube and social media. Is email a possibility if people have questions, teachers have questions, or I'm just gonna
Yeah.
hyperlink everything. So is that fine with you?
Yeah,
All the
absolutely.
social
I
media?
have I have a YouTube channel. If you go on my channel, you just see that my email is there.
Okay.
I try my best to respond back to anyone that contacts me on Instagram or TikTok. So don't be afraid to contact me, and I will do everything in my power to help or at least guide you in the direction that can help whatever questions you have, for sure.
That's awesome, Tom. I appreciate it so much. Tom, thank you so much for saying yes to this podcast and sharing your expertise with us. It was great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. And I
Absolutely.
continue to do
Listen,
what you're doing. It's great for the profession.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. So, listeners, if you have any questions, you can always email us at mayfordpodcast@gmail.com. We'll have this episode uploaded soon. We're also asking our listeners to rate and share this podcast if it has helped you in any way. Thank you all for listening. Have a great week, and we'll be back soon.